Hello, everyone. You may either be watching this live or watching this recorded, but you may recognize me at UCSD. I am on ACM, but many of you may not know that I am also a venture partner at Contrary. And I'll go a little bit over what Contrary is firstly. So 5 years ago, what we saw was that university startups needed support. And while university entrepreneurs have been a primary source of great tech companies, these entrepreneurs really, really need exceptional support networks from the very start. Believe it or not, even Mark Zuckerberg, for his first few employees and founders, were already billionaires and had exceptional sort of support beforehand. Third is that a lot of underrepresented founders struggled to find the right support when they needed it most. And so we built a venture fund backed by the world's most iconic entrepreneurs. So from the founders of Twitch, Airbnb, SoFi, and Reddit, and much, much more, we collected a network of entrepreneurs and early stage founders to help accelerate the growth of these many university-based startups. Contrary connects the many talented and ambitious builders with a heavy hitting network for life. So whether you be creating a startup in the Bay Area or on the East Coast, we can get you partnered with a lot of these large companies and funds across the United States as well. Our venture partners really span 35 countries across North America now. So from UCSD all the way to Harvard, we have venture partners in these pods, ranging from 1 to 2 people each to even 4 people. And these venture partners are really equipped with helping these early stage founders accelerate the growth of their startup, whether that be introducing them to mentors or oftentimes even providing a pathway into funding. So what does Contrary offer? Like I said, we have events and communities that span across the 35 plus campuses across North America. And these are just one of the many events across North America as well. And second, we can fund up to $500K for a lot of these founders. Thirdly, we have career launching services and connections through a program we call Contrary Talent, which is a fellowship that runs year round until you graduate and even afterwards, and pairs you with mentors and industry connections to help you land an internship, help you build a product, or even get you started on a startup. So that's pretty much a rundown of Contrary. I can run over now how to build a pitch deck. And building a pitch deck is going to be very, very different on who you present this to, so keep this in mind. But a common thing about pitch decks is that they must be less than 20 slides, and the ultimate goal is to describe a problem and a solution to that audience. And like I said, who are you going to pitch this to? Are you going to be pitching this towards an investor? Is it going to be a pitch competition? Or are you pitching towards your friends, right? This talk will be mainly focused on the perspective of an investor. However, it will sort of apply to almost all projects within ACM, although you will be missing some slides that I'll talk about in a little bit. So some key tips is like to one, just keep out all of the technical jargon. Second thing, investors may be more or less versed in technology, and oftentimes if you're entering a room, you may not even know who shows up, right? So just keep that in mind. And lastly, many investors may have already done research prior to presenting, so really the slides will ultimately be a recap, summarization, and quick statement of what your company's problem and solution really is. Some things to note is just one, try to make it a story, be engaging. Much like with a regular storyline, there better be an exposition, a rising action, climax, and resolution. And I'll try to talk a little bit more about this as I present the next slides. The second thing is to present the problem before you present the solution. And this is something key, not only in creating a pitch deck, but also with creating your own startup as well. Because oftentimes many founders start with a cool idea or impressive technology, but work their ways backwards towards finding a problem. You really want to do the opposite. Find a problem that you really relate to and want to work on, and then build out that solution. Then lastly, this is more specific to student founders now. Investors look towards really commitment from students. So if this is like a side project that you're gonna be working on like once a month or 3 times a month, then that's a slight red flag. And then also its execution. Do you have the technical capabilities as a college student to build this tool or product out? All right, so what is going to be in your pitch deck? The answer is it depends, and there is no right way of building a pitch deck. Um, this is a really good sort of like infographic of common slide decks and templates that come from like Sequoia, 500 startups, even Airbnb's pitch deck is here. So it ranges really how many slides you can have and what sort of specific slides that you need. But something extremely common across all these slides is like one, have that problem slide. Second, have that solution slide. And then like the business model slide, competition slide, founding team, and then fundraising. These are all the critical slides that you need to build out your pitch deck. And everything else is either really optional or depending on the market your product is being pitched towards, you can include it. All right, so we're going to be using Airbnb as an example, and I'll like create slides interweaving with this to explain each one. So this is considered the cover slide. This should really just include the logo of your company. Here it's Air Bed and Breakfast, so that was like the original name of Airbnb. Keep in mind that this was their original slide deck in, I believe, 2012, and this was used to raise their either like early seed or like, yeah, I think pretty sure early seed rounds. So if you want to learn more about fundraising, we'll do another sort of workshop next week on that. But cover slide should be very simple, logo, maybe a quick statement or more like slogan. And then you're going to be going on to next, the problem slide. Remember to keep the problem slide really, really short and keep it simple. Oftentimes, there should be no more than 3 to 4 sentences or statements about the current problem space. Meaning that if I see like a paragraph on the problem space, I'm not going to read the entire thing. Third thing is just avoid using technical jargon once again. These are the problems that your investors or just normal people can relate to, right? So try using like the example of pitching to your grandma, right? If your grandma can understand this problem and the problem slide, then you're on a good path. And lastly, realize that the problem slide is the first slide you're going to be like clicking on, and it really will set the impression to your audience. So make sure the slides and the statements are typically like non-debatable, like there's something that many people can relate to and is pretty simple to understand. So the Airbnb slide has really 3 key statements or sentences here. One is price. Price is an important concern for customers booking travel online. So this is something that almost everyone can relate to. When I travel across the country, I want to make sure that like wherever I stay or wherever I fly is cheap. The second thing, hotels leave you disconnected from the city and its culture. So oftentimes when you stay in a hotel, you don't really get the sense of culture in the hotel because it's sort of this bubble where you get served food in the hotel, you work out at the hotel, and you meet people only from the hotel, and those people in the hotel often aren't even from the city, right? And lastly, no easy way exits to book a home with a local or become a host. So this sort of bleeds into the sort of era where everyone put things on Craigslist to like rent out a home. And at the time, there was really no efficient way of booking a home with the locals of that area. And then next, you'll be moving on to the solution slide. The solution slide should solve each part of the program, and you still want to avoid technical jargon unless it's necessary. So I have an example here. So let's say you're building Airbnb's lightweight, like mobile, progressive web app. This is something your grandma's not going to understand. And if you're building this out for an investor, they may understand. But you can really just simplify this like one statement into download an app through your web browser. This reduces the technical jargon and makes it so that even the technical investors can understand, and also like the non-technical ones. So this is Airbnb's solution slide. Keep in mind it's all a recreation, so it's not like one-to-one, but their solution is a web platform where users can rent out their space to host travelers to solve their 3 solutions, right? Or 3 problems rather. First, to save money while traveling. Second, to make money while hosting. And lastly, to share culture, that local connection to the city. So they previously presented like price being an issue, like hotels disconnecting you from the culture, and then like there's no platform to do this, right? And this solution slide captures each one of these problems and condenses it into an easy to understand sentence with a unique value proposition across the competition. Next, we'll be going on to market slides. This oftentimes will be paired with a go-to-market slide, or it might be go-to-market, then market slides. The ordering of the slides don't matter an entire amount for like a lot of the projects you may be presenting right now, but for Airbnb's case, they decided to put the market slides first. Don't really worry about like the position for it right now, but for the market slides, you want to really market or sort of grasp the entire market size using something called bottom up like market sizing. And what this basically means is that you want to start at the revenue of many competition or the revenue that you have right now, and then work your ways up towards the total addressable market. I'll have a slide right next to this which explains this a little bit more, but the sort of consensus is that by taking a top-down market sizing, you're grabbing a large chunk, which is most likely not going to be accessible. So like just ask yourself, right? The opioid crisis in the United States is $100 billion, right? So everyone's going to think, oh, isn't that my total addressable market? Well, not necessarily. That's the sort of cost of your problem. It's not the market size in which you can fix it. Like, can your solution realistically capture that entire problem? Or are you really wanting to capture that market, right? And this goes into the next slide, which is something called TAM, SAM, SOM. Ideally, start with your SOM first, and then work your ways up to something realistic for your TOM or your TAM. So, what is SOM? SOM is sizable, addressable, or I think it's sizable, obtainable market rather, which is your current share of the market. So, like if I'm Airbnb and I am across the United States, my competition might be hotels, right? So if I have like 100,000 of like the hotels, that'll be a 20% penetration across like the 2 million like hotels across the United States. This example isn't Airbnb specific, but this sort of just grabs the point. SAM is serviceable addressable market, which is the market segment that you'll want to target and you can idealistically or feasibly reach. So this is like one step above that, which is all of the sort of like hotels that you can reach within the area, excluding like maybe motels, right? And then like total addressable market, it's all the market that you can capture at the very max. So think of like all the hotels, think of all the motels, think of like all the sort of different housing options for people that want to stay only a few nights. Airbnb has a market validation slide. This is very specific to Airbnb and is not that common, but looking back in like 2012, this made a lot of sense for Airbnb because everyone was very, very wary of Airbnb's success against the sort of like hotel market. And to really validate that this product would work against hotels, they proved it through this market validation slide. So 630,000 like listings were already on the Couchsurfing website, which means that people really wanted to use this product, right? And there were already 17,000 listings on only the SF and NYC Craigslist over the course of 1 week. So that not only validates the problem, it really accelerates it into the next slide, which is the total market size. This is the exact same thing I talked about with TAM, SAM, SOM. Total addressable market here is trips booked, serviceable addressable market, budgets on online trips, serviceable obtainable market, trips with Airbnb. And then you'll be moving on next to your product slide. This is where you'll be showing off your product, oftentimes in a complete flow in a few steps. It should be as simple as like, A, you do this, B, you do this, C, you're done. Should be that easy. You can also substitute this for a video if you want. Just keep it short, like under a minute. That's usually fine. Oftentimes at the end of a call, sometimes you may be asked to do a demo, but it's not that necessary and not that common. You'll also be going over features, functionality, and something that your competitors don't have. Airbnb was very specific in the sense that their problem was not new. It was something that has been existing on Couchsurfing and like Craigslist for many like years, but it was essentially a design problem where there was not a platform that was clean enough and was modern enough to really fit the needs of many of the couch surfers at the time. So this is their product. It's easy as like 1, 2, 3, like I said. 1, search by city. 2, review the listings. And then lastly, just book it. Next, we'll be going on to the business model slide. So ask yourself a question. How does your startup make money? Does it do it based on a subscription? Does it bundle it with other products? Is it freemium? Is this sort of the razor blades model where you like send out a product, right? And they have to keep buying this alternative product like the razor blades to the handle. Where does your sort of product make its money from, right? Is it sort of consumer to consumer? So think of stuff like Airbnb, where Airbnb doesn't hold a single piece of real estate in its name. Or is it business to business? Are you sort of like handling the supply chain where you need to get like cargo from freights from one business to like another business? Or are you doing the common like B2C? Are you selling like flowers at a flower shop to a regular consumer? Just ask yourself these questions, and that'll be really essential towards creating the slide. You can also go into sort of like your customer sort of pipeline list or your average size or lifetime value. You'll probably be asked a lot of these things afterwards as well, but just know these before like you get asked these questions. And this is their business model slide. They take a 10% commission on each transaction, and this is sort of how they make money, right? So if you have 10.6 million trips with Airbnb and each fee is $20, they make $200 million over the span of 3 years. So this is like a lot. These are like a few slides combined into one. Oftentimes you'll have like a go to market before the market slide. Airbnb has a market adoption slide. Like I said in the past, Airbnb at the time was not a relatively like new product or problem. So they really needed to prove to many people that Airbnb can succeed in the face of hotels. So ask yourself some questions like, what will you do in the immediate future to acquire new users? What will you do to boost the amount of users that you have? And how many users are you going to acquire by a specific date? So you may be asking yourself the question, right? Like, what if my product hasn't launched yet? What if my go-to-market strategy is so far out? Well, you're probably going to be estimating to the best of your ability, and you will need a go-to-market slide eventually anyways. So ask yourself how you can like gain the traction beforehand. Do you have a wait list? Do you have signups? Do you have a soft launch? And if you do have traction already, you can do a traction slide. So what is your month over month growth, right? How many users did you increase from last month to this month? Oftentimes startups will be in an insane like exponential trajectory where they're doing like 30% month over month growth, then like 50% month over month growth, then like 120% month over month growth. So it is a very strong exponential curve. Airbnb market adoption slide. This is sort of like a little bit of a combination of like a go-to-market. So they have events that they're like targeting very specifically in the future. There are some like screenshots here that aren't available, but they were testing at the time Airbnb at a lot of local events. And like a fun fact of how Airbnb got started was I believe there was a conference nearby and they had like a Craigslist listing, and they basically got all these people from like across like the world, across like North America to come to this like Craigslist listing, and they all put them in a room and they all went to the conference together. And then they heard wonderful stories of how all the people in the same Airbnb living in the same room together still kept in touch like years and years after, and like even one of them like invited another person in that Airbnb like to their wedding. So that's sort of like a tangent, but that's how Airbnb got started. It was really through like events and posting stuff on Airbnb. And at the time, Airbnb also had like this dual posting feature where like you could penetrate like Airbnb, like the Craigslist like listings market too, by literally just posting Airbnbs on Craigslist. So you have like double like the marketing. And then also partnerships, great place to increase the amount of users you have. Next thing you'll be doing is most likely a competition slide. This is an essential slide where you list out all of your competitors. And obviously, if you do a competition slide, you should be the best. You can use a 2-axis grid. You can create a table. You can just list them out. Commonly, I've been seeing a lot of 2-axis grids, but you can also do like a table where you do like a cross comparison. But the thing to ask yourself is, what is your competitive advantage and what is your main selling point on these axes? So on Airbnb, there's really two really strong value propositions, right? It was one, that it is affordable, and two, it's an online transaction. So while hotels.com might be like an online transaction where you get to book it very seamlessly, Airbnb was way more affordable because of their hosts. And while Craigslist oftentimes was like a little bit affordable, it was an offline transaction, meaning that you needed to message the host directly. Also, like Couchsurfing at the time was very affordable, but you still needed to message the host all of these like logistical stuff. So Airbnb at the time really streamlined the process of booking like rooms hosted by other people. And then you'll have like a competitive advantage slide. This will just go over like the unique value propositions you may have. So first to market, they actually like probably weren't the first to market, to be honest, but they put it down. The host incentive, these are like all like placeholder text because it's like a recreation, but like really just lists out the unique value propositions that's like really make you stand out from the rest of your competitors, right? So like listing ones, ease of use, profiles, design, and brand. I will say that this slide is a little bit more on the bulkier side. I've seen slides where this is like only like 3 maybe like bullet points or like 4 bullet points with like 3 headlines. So just select the ones that you think will resonate the most to your audience. Here, there's 6, but that's also fine. Next thing you'll be going over is the team slides. So why are you the most qualified to build this product? Oftentimes with startup ideas, they're completely worthless, but execution is worth everything. So why is it that your team is the one that's qualified to build this product? Also, like, have founders. You can have advisors on your slide. More and more, I'm seeing this as like less common because advisors realistically don't put that much time into a startup. Like they'll be putting in like a few hours a month max. So honestly, having the founder slide is completely fine. And you want to have really 4 to 5 founders like max on this slide. Don't have like your entire team on here. That's like a sort of red flag as well. If like you have like 10 founders, that just does not exist. So I don't have Airbnbs. This is from Twine, which is a UK-based startup that's focused on like outsourcing work. So this is like a good team slide here where we have like the CEO and the CTO. Typically with technology-based startups, you want to have at least one person that's technically inclined, if not all of them. This is like a funny example because Airbnb, believe it or not, both founders were not like technical, they're both designers. So there's that. There's always exceptions to every single rule, I guess. And yeah, they have on their team slide like their investors. You can oftentimes put your investor slide separately, but they decided to combine it here, which is completely fine. Then your financial slide. I don't have an example for this, but you can put down your profit and loss statement, like very summarized, obviously. It just summarizes your revenues and spendings. But you can also put down if you have any investments already, what are your expectations for financial growth. And you won't put this on the same slide, but afterwards, you should be saying something like, what is your ask, right? I'll be covering financials a little bit more on the next workshop, so I'm not going to go over this too much. But that basically concludes all of the workshop. Thanks everyone for coming, and if you're watching this on YouTube, hopefully this was informative. If you ever want to reach out, my email is at stanley@contrarycap.com. So it's CONTRARYCAP.com.